A federal lawsuit filed today is trying to block a planned UFC fight event on the White House South Lawn tied to President Trump's 80th birthday celebrations, arguing the plan violates National Park Service rules and raises legal and environmental review concerns. According to the reporting, the lawsuit was filed by the Public Integrity Project on behalf of two Virginia residents and targets the scheduled UFC event planned for the White House grounds. The suit argues the event violates National Park Service rules that ban sporting events on federal parklands. This is not just a celebrity event story. It's an intersection of public property use, federal permitting, environmental process, and presidential optics. The plaintiffs and their legal team are positioning the case as a rule of law issue, that federal land and national monuments should not be used for a commercial entertainment spectacle in a way that bypasses established rules. The lawsuit also raises questions about congressional approval and whether environmental review requirements were followed. The White House response is sharp. It frames the lawsuit as obstruction and argues the event is properly permitted and comparable to other large public events that have been held on or near the grounds. At the center is a familiar Trump-era political dynamic. A major public spectacle becomes a national policy argument. Supporters see the event as a bold cultural statement, a high-energy celebration of American entertainment hosted at the nation's most iconic civic symbol. They also argue this is a modern version of public celebration, no different in principle than major holiday gatherings, public concerts, or large ceremonial events. Opponents see it as a misuse of public property and a blurring of lines between governance, personal branding, and commercial culture. They argue the symbolic role of the White House should not be leveraged this way. The lawsuit's details matter, because this is where the dispute becomes concrete. Is there a clear rule being violated? And does the court view the event as legally different from other gatherings on federal grounds? The reporting also describes significant preparations, construction underway for an arena-like setup with an octagon and a large seating capacity, plus plans for large screens and a massive distribution of free tickets for attendees at the South Lawn and nearby areas. From a legal perspective, cases like this often hinge on process. Judges frequently ask, is there standing? Do plaintiffs have a legal right to sue? Is the harm imminent enough to justify emergency relief? Did the government follow required review steps? Does the agency interpretation of sporting event and parkland use hold up? This is why the lawsuit seeks urgency. Once a massive event happens, injunctive relief becomes impossible, and the case becomes mostly symbolic or retrospective. For the administration, there are operational issues too. Any high-profile event on the White House grounds requires security, crowd control, logistics, emergency planning, and coordination across agencies. Even if the event is privately organized, public resources and public space are involved. And then there's the political overlay. The event is tied to a major national milestone period around America's 250th anniversary celebrations, which raises the emotional stakes. This is why the story is bigger than UFC. It's about what presidents can do with national symbols and whether there are enforceable limits. What happens next depends on the court timeline. The key indicators: does the judge grant an emergency injunction? If the answer is yes, the event pauses and the White House faces a high-profile legal setback. Does the judge deny emergency relief but keep the case alive? That would likely allow the event to proceed while litigation continues, with legal arguments shifting to whether rules were violated after the fact. Does the case get dismissed quickly for standing or procedural reasons? That would be framed as a major win for the administration and would likely accelerate preparations. From a narrative perspective, both sides want a clean story. The administration's ideal storyline: we're celebrating America, and activists are trying to stop it. The opposition storyline: This is corruption and commercialization of national symbols. The legal system will decide whether the story is mostly political theater or an enforceable rules question with real consequences. Regardless of how the court rules, the controversy itself may be the point. High visibility conflict keeps attention locked, energizes base identity, and turns culture into politics. The outcome will set a precedent, not necessarily legally for all future events, but culturally. How far presidential spectacle can go before courts, agencies, or Congress push back?